live. You got Myrna Molina.
So, but what if owns all that equipment? No, you kept them all pretty late when you.
I know I did.
You're gonna come up with $14 million?
I'm not.
They're not positive.
Pardon me?
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, isn't it, I think we should make that a
Not gonna happen.
I brought this up on the webinar and said, sure. Okay. Maybe get.
Be a long time before they can develop that.
Be a long time before what?
Before they can develop that.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Gotta have utilities,
Oh,
gotta get them meet.
it's a major, major undertaking.
Want to go back on the hay business?
Oh, it's nice and dry, it'd be kind of nice.
Oh, we've had a lot of,
We have been good and busy.
I thought it was gonna rain, we had hay mowed down.
I mean,
He's getting their money's worth out of me. Gotta get out of here.
What's going on?
I didn't know when you were gonna be in next, and it's like, oh.
Whatever happened to all your men, did they all we sold?
Yeah.
What's the successor company?
What's that?
What's the new company?
Well, it's Miller Concrete out of Washington County, pipeline.
That's me.
Companies in Elder, and just a couple guys, and a little bit. So, all our guys working until Friday.
Okay.
That's good for them.
Down to, I got a couple trucks and,
What's that big machine laying in your yard?
they just sold. Sold it to the low. No, you will, but.
Well, hi, Roger.
Hello, is this Chris Lawson?
Yes, it is. Hi, Roger.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
So, I know it's complicated on this one, so I appreciate it. Sure, thank you.
Scott sent me both. He did? Yeah, and they're all in one PDF, so.
We still have a few people assembling, but we should be ready in about 2 minutes.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Phyllis, you have Chairman Lawson.
Remote.
Yeah. You have John Martin, Chris Caius,
Caius is remote, okay.
Anita Lewis, Chez,
Okay.
Molina,
Hang on a second.
Susan
I just-
Starrett.
Okay. Starrett. I'll get it when I go, when I call.
It felt like a boat order when we sold our.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, we do have a quorum.
In the hurricane in the Gulf?
A quorum.
Yeah, right. Then you got where 81 now. So he's reaction. He had a lot of little parking lot
This is the special county board meeting, August 25th, 2020.
Like we do it now. You know, the new,
Teresa Barrero, Barbara Hernandez.
So we have enough for a quorum, I mean,
Ferrero's here.
oh, we're not doing it officially yet.
Oh, okay. You want to be left out there, you know.
Oh, Hanson's over there, huh? All righty.
Okay, Roger, I believe I'm going to go ahead and get started, okay?
Yeah, you have a quorum. You do
Okay,
have a quorum.
if we can get everybody's attention, we're going to call the meeting to order. So Chairman Lawson, we have him joined with us by teleconference. So Chairman Lawson, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Roger. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Kane County Board Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. This meeting has been called by John Martin, Mo Iqbal, Cliff Surgis, Chris Caius, John Hoshite, Mike Kenyon, Penny Wegman, and Jarrett Sanchez. Clerk will call, clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Ellen,
Allen, present.
Ferrero,
Ferrero here.
Davis. Fraz,
Here.
Hanson. Fernandez,
Here.
Oshite,
Here.
Iqbal. Iqbal. Kenyon. Caius,
Caius present.
Opie. Leonard,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Martin,
Martin here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Sanchez,
Here.
Sheffalo. Silva,
Here.
Starrett. Starrett,
She is online.
Stewart present.
Surgis. Surgis. Thomas. Weber,
Present.
Bregman. Winicki. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. There's no prayer on the agenda submitted. Next in order is public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a comment?
See none.
Seeing none, anyone on the phone would like to make a public comment?
No
Okay.
public comment.
Hearing none, we'll go to the next order of business, which is approval of resolution authorizing grant programs to distribute CARES Act funds to small businesses and not-for-profit organizations. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hoshite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for attending our meeting today. This meeting was called at the request of members of the County Board CARES Act Allocation Committee because we were in the process of discussing and formulating grant programs for businesses and for not-for-profit organizations. And at our meeting yesterday, we finalized the terms of the program, which are outlined in a resolution that has been forwarded to the full board for consideration today. This is Resolution 20-278, which has been circulated. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to move approval of that resolution.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by
Drew Frost.
Roger.
Drew Frost.
Drew Frost. Okay, and it was number 20-.
278.
278.
Okay, very good. Okay, you have a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Hoshite.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just outlining the programs. The business grant program was designed with criteria to benefit small businesses. The criteria, the eligibility criteria are spelled out in an executive summary that is attached. Primarily, the entities have to be in good standing. They have to be open for business as of August 1st. They have to have a physical location in Kane County. No more than 50 full-time equivalent employees as of March 1 of this year. And then gross revenue of no more than 2.5 million. We had two tiers for the grant program. One is up to $20,000 for businesses that were opened as of January 1 of 2019. And for businesses after that opened, there was a $10,000 grant limit. And there was a request that at least information be included in the application to indicate whether the business had been closed down in full or in part as a result of the restrictions established by the state of Illinois in Phase 2. And so that's the sum and substance of the program. The application timeline and evaluation is set forth in the executive summary. As far as the nonprofit grant program, this is for the $2 million that we had set aside for nonprofit organizations. We had, established the criteria that the entity be a 501c3 entity, deliver services from a facility located in Kane County, and provided its primary mission services to assist people with shelter, housing, sustenance, health services for medical and or mental health services. And they must have been reopened for business as of August 1. Again, attached to the executive summary is a tentative schedule for the application and vetting of the applications and the ultimate distribution of the funds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoshite. May I ask the folks who are on the phone to mute themselves until they'd like to speak, and we'll make sure that everyone who'd like to speak gets a turn. Okay, so that's the outline by Mr. Hoshite. Further discussion. Roger, if you could be my eyes.
Sure. Mr. Matt Hansen.
Good afternoon.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson.
And thank you for everyone's hard work, both on the phone listening in that have been a part of the CAC meetings, whether if you're a member of the committee or not, and that includes the work that was done yesterday. I'd like to make a motion to amend this resolution. It is not complicated, but I'll make sure that everyone can follow along because we do have people that are on the line. First of all, the spirit of this is to make sure that all the appropriate health services are included rather than to exclude anyone. So in the very last paragraph on the first page of 20-278, it would be in the second now therefore. I would like to see the word mental struck from there so that it would read food banks or provide health services.
Okay.
And as a second part of and I don't know how to amend an attachment, but the attachment is referred to in the resolution. I would like to add 3 categories of business to be excluded. That would be that would be built into attachment A. And the exhibit A, pardon me. Current businesses that would be not eligible are listed under item number 7 under the eligible applicants. And within that paragraph, I would like to see 3 types of businesses added as ineligible. And that would be religious organizations, political organizations, and financial institutions or businesses providing financial services. And that's the end of my amendments. So part of it is, again, adding 3 categories to ineligible biz and changing 1 word to make sure that the respective health services would be included into the not-for-profits.
I'm not following your attachment of religious, political, and financial.
Okay. In Exhibit A,
Got Exhibit A.
the small business grant executive summary, these 3
7.
categories would be added into the paragraph below number 7 there,
Great.
which is then referenced in the resolution.
Okay, and Celeste, so I understand that Mr. Hanson is making a motion to amend 2278 to delete the modifier word mental, and I do not have this record in front of me, but to delete the word mental so that it's the general category of all health services, and number 2, that 3 categories of excluded businesses under Schedule A, number 7, religious, political, and financial, are also excluded. Is that correct, Mr. Hanson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and the intent with the religious organizations would not exclude them from applying for a non-for-profit grant if a religious affiliated organization is providing a non-for-profit grant, but I would not like to see a religious organization be eligible for a business grant.
Understood. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by Weber.
Okay, second by Mr. Weber. Discussion.
Mr. Hoshide?
Mr. Hoshite.
I can understand the first proposed change. I think that's academic. The second change is something we didn't discuss in our meeting. And we did spend a lot of time talking about types of organizations that could comply or not comply with the requirements. So I'm not sure what the term religious organization means. It's the same things that we talked about. What does a political organization mean? What does a financial institution or a business that provides financial services mean? It could mean, and those could encompass a lot of different type of organizations. And there may be entities that we propose to, or that we would be comfortable providing a business grant to that fall into some of those categories, but that's not their primary business. So I would have, had we discussed it at the committee, I would be more comfortable making that change. I think at this point, if we're going to make that change, we either send it back to committee for further discussion or move the program forward.
Okay.
As
Thank you,
originally
Mr. Hoshite.
drafted.
Thank you, Mr. Hoshite. Further discussion on the amendment to 2278. Roger?
I see none.
Okay, seeing none, is there any from anyone on the phone? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the amendment to 20-278. Clerk, call the roll. Thank you, Celeste.
Okay. Ellen,
Ellen, no.
Ferrero? On the amendment?
Ferrero, yes.
Davis, are you here? Fraz?
No.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hernandez? Hernandez? Hoshite?
No.
Iqbal? Iqbal? Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Hopi? Or, he's not here, sorry. Leonard?
No.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Martin, no.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
No.
Jefflo? Here, no. Silva?
Silva, yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sturgis?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Winnicki? Count them up.
Yeah.
11, it passes 11-8. Passes, the amendment passes 11-8.
Yeah.
Okay, would you please, recall the roll
Sure.
so that we, so that we can double check it, and anybody, speak up if somehow, we're mistaken.
Right, or I missed you. Ellen was a yes. I'm sorry, Ellen, you were a no. Barrero, you were a yes. I received nothing from Davist. Fraz voted no. Hanson voted yes. Hernandez, I did not hear. Hoshite voted no. Iqbal, there was no vote. Kenyon voted yes. Caius voted yes. Nothing from Kopi. Leonard voted no. Lewis voted yes. Martin voted no. Molina voted yes. Sanchez voted no. No vote from Shefflo. Silva voted yes. Starrett voted yes. Surgis voted no. Thomas voted yes. Weber voted yes. Wegman voted yes. Wonicky voted no. 11-8. So the amendment passes.
She's on here. She tried to speak, but she could, something wrong with communications.
All right. Is there anyone who disputes the call of the roll? Did we make an error on anyone's vote? Hearing none, do you see any, Roger?
None.
Okay. So the motion to amend 2278 passes 11-8. And so now further discussion on number 2278 as amended.
Mr. Hoshite. Chairman, are you there? I do not see Chris Lawson on the phone anymore. Do you want to wait for him?
Yeah, let's just wait a minute and see if he dials back in. This is the State's Attorney Joe McMahon.
Yeah, I don't see him right now.
I'm sorry, Roger, can you tell me what's happening? This is
So,
Alan.
just give me 1 second. We're waiting for Chairman Lawson to rejoin.
Oh, okay.
Chairman, are you there? I believe he's back on. You get his audio.
Okay, I'm back. Roger, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
we just
so
took a pause. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we just took a
Okay.
pause while you reconnected. So I think where we left off was, I believe you recognized Mr. Hoshite for further comment on the motion that's pending.
Yes. So further discussion on number 2278 as amended, Mr. Hoshite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask the individuals involved that will be involved in evaluating these requests if the addition of paragraph 7 to the criteria under the business grant program are clear enough or need further clarification. If they're clear enough, then we move forward and vote on this and I'll support it. If the individuals who are going to be evaluating the applications need more clarification, then I think we need to send it back to committee for consideration.
Well, Mr. Berger's here,
Okay.
I guess.
Okay, Mr. Berger.
Yes, good afternoon. I do have one question. The program is aimed exclusively at for-profit entities and chambers of commerce. So by religious organization, might you be referring to bookstores or the like that might deal with items of a religious nature? That's one question I would have as a result of these items.
I think that certainly raises the point that I was concerned about, because as we dealt through these issues at the committee level, every example creates another potential. And I don't think the intention of the committee would be that a religious bookstore, if it was a for-profit entity, would be excluded from the criteria for grant applications. So that's why I raised the issue.
Okay, Mr. Hoshite, does that answer? Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. Hoshite?
I think it points out that there's some further clarification that would help if we're going to insert this. I thought that the first change was appropriate. The second, if it's going to create difficulty in our staff evaluating grants, I don't, I wasn't in favor, and that's why I voted no.
Okay, further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have Jarrett Sanchez with a question.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is for Matt. He proposed the changes for under religious organizations. Would a church be exempt if they are operating as a not-for-profit and they are helping like with like soup kitchens and things like that for the homeless? I would think we would want to get them some money if they need it, but would that be excluded under this?
If I could comment, I think, Mr. Sanchez, you might be making reference to both programs in your statement. The business grant program is exclusively for-profit businesses, and I believe chambers of commerce are eligible. And the nonprofit program is exclusively available to 501c3s, and I think there's been a reference made to the fact that some religious or faith-based organizations are in the business or the side business of providing services to the public. So I believe the amendment that was made regarding religious organizations was specific to the business program, not the nonprofit program, if I understood correctly.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, is that Ms. Barrero?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, Ms. Barrero.
I just have a question for Commissioner Holscheit. I'd hate to see this brought back to committee because that's part of our problem, right? We don't want to delay it any further. So, Scott, I understand what you're saying as far as if it's a religious organization or a soup kitchen or what have you. I think we might have a problem with that. Maybe we should just take that word out. What do you think, Matt?
I think Matt.
It's Commissioner Hanson. You posed a question to me. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you have religious organizations in this. If we took that out, we just need to be specific for Scott Berger, and so he knows how to go forward.
Yes, when I proposed that, it had zero to do with the non-for-profit part of the programs we're voting on today and the resolutions in front of us. It was if a church happened to be turning a profit, a church, whether it be a small pop-up church or a big mega church, can apply for our business grants. The same principle. I'll clarify the motion or to amend that regarding financial institutions. There are plenty of predatory lenders within the world of Aurora where I reside, and I don't want to see a title loan or a payday loan entity receive our funding right now. Banks of any type, of any financial institutional type, were deemed to be essential. They were allowed to be open, and part of this is designed to be aid, and that's where my line of thinking came from. And especially when it came to financial institutions and those types of lenders, I submitted those thoughts and emails to everyone a long time ago.
Okay, Ms. Barrero, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right, thank you. Further discussion. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, you have Mr. Holscheit.
Okay, Mr. Holscheit.
Again, this amendment would have been more appropriate at the committee level so we could vet this out. But we talked about the language that was included in the amendment was financial institution or an entity that provides financial services. What does that mean? Does an accounting firm fall within that criteria if they provide financial services to their accountants? Does an insurance office that does investments for their accountant or for their clients provide financial services? There are a number of entities outside payday loan businesses. And I mean, it sounds like this is more of a political issue than a practical issue. But I think what's going to happen is with this last minute change is we've got a gray area here And then the phone calls will be coming in by those entities that had similar losses that won't be covered because of this vague or broadly defined term here. So again, I'm just concerned about the last minute addition of that.
That is understood. We do have an amendment that's been voted on and passed. So is there? I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Could anybody on the phone please mute their phone? Thank you very much. So we have number 2278 that has been amended. Is there further discussion on that resolution as amended? Roger.
I see none.
Okay.
Is either Chris
Again, I'm getting.
Caius or Deb Allen. Deb Allen,
Yes, I would like to address the committee.
Okay, and somebody, I'm getting feedback from someone's phone, background conversation, not anymore, but thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. Miss Allen?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question for the small business loan part of the resolution is this. There is, if we have more applications than $8 million worth, there is language about moving up in the ranks a business that had to close during phase 2. And my question is this: if somebody like a restaurant stayed open by doing takeout or something like that, in order to keep some of their staff employed, their cooks employed, their vendors employed, and so on, and so they presumably made some money by doing that, but they didn't make enough to cover rent or utilities, should they be penalized for being partly open as opposed to people who closed entirely? It seems to me that we should be crediting people who tried to be partly open in order to keep their people employed. I would think we would want to reward them, not punish them. Can somebody address that for me?
I can attempt to.
I think that I would. Okay, Mr. Berger.
Yeah, I think I would just suggest that I think the committee's idea was that those businesses that were required to be closed naturally went to zero revenue, very likely, and therefore they recognized that part of the applicant pool as perhaps especially meritorious.
Okay, and thank you for the answer. And Miss Ellen, does that answer your question? I mean, it doesn't change the point that you're making, but does it answer the question that's being asked by you?
I think, like Mr. Hochschild, I would be more comfortable if this went back to committee. I realize that we're trying to move this along quickly and get relief to people, but the rules keep changing. We have built in some flexibility for the municipalities trying to deal with the rules. So I think it would be also okay for the committee to take a look at some of these additional questions and still be able to move our business grants forward in a timely fashion. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Your suggestion is noted by the board. Mr. Caius, I believe that you were next.
I'm sorry, I didn't have anything to comment. Or actually,
Okay.
there was, excuse me, one more moment. How critical is it to move this along? Is there another opportunity, Mr. Hochschild, to have this? Does this have to be voted on today?
The answer is it does not have to be, but we went through this whole process of setting up a special meeting after a detailed deliberation for the last 2 weeks about what the program would consist of, and we're dealing now with a last minute change here. So the answer is no. I think it's in the best interest of the community that we move forward, however, as quickly as possible. And when we start deleting people at the last minute, then you create questions as to why that wasn't debated at length at committee. And in circumstances like this, if we pass this, I'll say, because we didn't have the opportunity to.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you,
Mr. Kenyon.
Good.
Perhaps,
Okay, Mr. Kenyon.
perhaps we need a motion to reconsider, and I voted on the side to approve it. I move we reconsider it and cut out the language in number 7. So we'll just have the original take out the word mental health. We'll take out mental. So motion to reconsider this.
Second by Frost.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Frost.
Frost can't do it, can he?
Discussion.
No, point of order, Mr. Chairman.
fine.
This is,
Mr. Hoshai.
Sure.
I think
Mr.
if,
Hoshai.
if it's
Yes?
a motion to reconsider, the person moving in the second would have had to vote against it. I think a more appropriate motion would be to simply further amend this by deleting the changes to paragraph 7 and leaving in the original change to the mental health issue. So that, I think, Mr.
We could
Kenyon,
reconsider it if Hanson and I move to reconsider it, that we'd bring back out and cut out number 7.
well, if we reconsider it, then we have to vote the entire motion down. I think it's easier if we simply now we have a motion on the floor that's been amended with 2 changes. Now it would be more easier or more appropriate to say, we're going to further amend it by deleting one of the changes.
This is the state's attorney, if I can jump in here. So the original motion to amend was moved by Mr. Hanson and then seconded by Mr. Weber. Procedurally, what you're asking to do in your motion to reconsider, Mr. Kenyon, is more appropriately a motion to further amend.
Okay.
So you can make that motion to
Well, the
amend,
motion to further amend.
as I understand it, would remove those 3 categories of ineligibility. We would leave in, the word mental would remain out of the body of the resolution, but the second part of Mr. Hanson's original motion that had ineligibility criteria would be to remove that, back that out of the resolution. And it's been seconded by Mr. Frost. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me weigh in there.
Okay, so I understand that Mr. Kenyon has made a motion to further amend as described by the state's attorney, and Mr. Frost has seconded that. Is there discussion on that further amendment? Do you see any, Roger?
None from the room?
Okay, any from people on the phone? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the further amendment.
Ellen,
Could you come back to me? I'm still thinking about it.
Barrero,
Guerrero, yes.
Davis, did you arrive? Fraz,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hernandez, Hoshai,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Present.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Garrett,
Garrett, yes.
Just,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Winnicke.
Davis, yes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion to further amend passes. So now 2278 consists of the original language plus the deletion of the limiting word of mental and just keeping the general health services. Further discussion on 20-278 as it was further amended. Do you see any, Roger?
I see none. Oh, we got two. We got Ms. Thomas.
Okay, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Hanson that, and I voted to amend this resolution. So I want to clarify what I believe is reasonable. So I move to amend Resolution 20-278 to list as ineligible banks, payday lenders, and title lenders, or title loan lenders.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Thomas to amend the further amendment. Is there a second?
You have Mr. Hanson seconds.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, are you seconding that motion?
Yes, I'll second the motion to amend.
Okay, so it's seconded by Hanson. Discussion on the amendment of the further amendment. Do we see any, Roger?
I see none.
Okay, do we have any on the phone? Anybody like to comment?
Mr.
Okay, hearing
Chairman,
none. Oh,
Chris Caius?
yes,
Mr. Caius,
Mr. Kaya.
can we consult with Mr. Berger to see how this would affect the change, or how the change would affect? Is this a serious consideration that's going to cause problems?
I don't believe so.
Okay, does that answer the question, Mr. Caius?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Alan,
Further-
Alan has a question.
Okay, Miss Allen.
May I ask Mr. Hoshite, does that limit the problems that you were seeing about the gray area with other kinds of businesses having financial involvement, possibly wanting to apply?
That was a question from Miss Allen, Mr. Hoshite.
I think the deletion of the term financial services makes it easier. So I guess to answer your question, my personal preference is we leave the original program as is, but it does tighten up the concern that I had.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
the
Hoshite.
three categories, the categories were banks. Was it payday loan? What were the categories again? Banks?
Payday lenders, title loan lenders.
I could put it in behind me.
Title
Banks.
loan
Banks.
lenders.
I got it.
Yeah, my
And
note-
title loan lenders.
Okay, that's two. Wasn't there a third?
So there was, Mr. Chairman, this is the state's attorney. So I understand that the motion would exclude banks, payday lenders, and title loan lenders, those being the three categories.
Okay. Understood. Appreciate the clarification. Now, I think that's Mr. Berger. Did you have something that you would like to
No, I was simply going to
put on the table?
question, but the question's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so so that's answer to Ms. Allen's question. Further discussion?
See none.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none on the phone. We have a motion by Ms. Thomas, a second by Mr. Hanson to exclude banks, payday lenders, title loan lenders under number 7, Exhibit A of the attachment, or okay, to 2278. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the further amendment? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on passing number 2278 as amended after the further amendment.
Mr. Chairman, this is the state's attorney. I think the motion that's on the floor is just the third motion to amend. That would be Ms. Thomas's
Oh, okay.
motion, Just Ms. Thomas's
Okay.
motion to amend is the 3 categories. So that's what you have on the floor right now, sir.
Yes. Yes, that's right. That's the Thomas and Hanson. Thomas motion, second by Hanson. Okay, good. Again, my error. Any further discussion on that amendment to what was further amended? Okay.
None in the room, Mr. Chairman.
Roger. Okay, none in the room. Anybody from the phone? Okay, hearing none, clerk will call the roll on that third amendment.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Barrero,
Ferrero, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hernandez, Hoshite,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Winnicki. Yes. That passes.
Okay, the motion passes. So now we're back to 2278.
Yes.
Further amend. Oh, who was that? Who is that? And we'll go ahead and record the vote.
I believe it was Starrett, but I'm not sure.
You already had it.
Celeste already
No,
had that
actually, it
vote?
wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't Starrett. Thank you, though.
Okay, if someone would like to identify that yes vote. Okay, hearing no further clarification, we have 20-278, which was amended to the further amendment. Any final discussion on putting in place the resolution authorizing grant program to distribute CARES Act funds to small businesses and not-profit organizations with the amendments of the general health services and then the exclusion of banks, payday lenders, and title loan lenders. Is there any further discussion?
See none.
Seeing none in the room, any from anybody on the phone? Okay,
None.
hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, no.
Ferrero,
This is with all the amendments that we just did, the ending amendment, correct?
correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hernandez is not here.
Yes.
Okay, that it sounds like it was Hernandez, Miss
Yes.
Hernandez.
Got it. Lead marker is in. Hoshite,
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, present.
Are you voting on the motion, Dr. Iqbal?
Yes,
And what's your vote on the motion?
present. I abstain. I didn't have
Okay.
enough time to really go through it. No
Fair
one
enough, I
sent me
just-
this draft.
okay, I'll mark you.
Understood.
I'll
You're
mark you
marked
as
present.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius? Caius? Kopi's not here. Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Sanchez, yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Winnicke. Yes. Did I miss anyone?
I think Mr. Sanchez weighed in there.
Yeah, it must have cut out. Sorry. Yes,
What's your vote, Mr. Sanchez?
it's a yes.
Thank you.
Caius, yes.
Thank you. Okay, that passes.
Okay, so number 2278 amended to the further amendment passes. So that resolution passes. So Mr. Hoshite, is there anything else that the CAC group needs
Nothing at this
from
time.
today's
Thank you.
meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, is there anything further that you would want us to consider? Any other action?
Not at this time.
Okay. Okay, then under other business, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Now that the vote is passed and decision made on that, I really do sympathize with you know, I sympathize with the board, the CAC committee, and the choices for administrators and consultants. I believe are experiencing and discovering how really complicated any large appropriation project is. For example, just yesterday on August 24th, 2020, 2 months after the CAC group and the full board assumed total responsibility for distributing the $92.9 million, Mayor Burns asked for more time to file applications, in his words, from September 11 or September 18th, because the Treasury regulations are unclear and changing, which is exactly what the task force cautioned everyone on July 1st. We all understand that you don't want me involved in this process, and with 13 votes in the direction, I have to accept your wishes. You can see I am accommodating you in every CAC meeting by keeping my thoughts to myself in executive committees and board meetings, special and routine, by calling all of your questions without any comment before your vote. Roger, if you'd put up slide A, I'd appreciate it. However, now after the vote, as a citizen and as the person elected to be chairman of this board for a 4-year period by 146,533 votes, I do remind the board members of the responsibility that we all have sworn to be sure that procurement law compliance must be checked by you individually and as a board and adhered to, and the common sense decision-making process that should be followed, which mainly is information must be in your hands on time. Even Drew Fraz, has warned us, cautioned us, even criticized that, 3 days not enough. With today's meeting, the information was about 3.5 hours transmitted to people at about noon. The first slide is a need for follow-up on the state's attorney, Joe McMahon, promised to give board members the KCB response to the RFP in the 7/27/20 transcript. I'll try to have that to the entire board Monday afternoon, and that way you have Thursday, Friday, and the weekend to review my recommendation. That has still not been received, unless somebody has it and I don't have a copy. If you go to the next slide, Roger.
Yes.
The chairman of the CAC group, Mr. Hoshite, promised to give the KCB proposal through the state's attorney's office transcript at the board meeting on the 11th of August. Mr. Chairman, the committee through the state's attorney's office will be glad to provide whatever information we have, which we must have this, response to your request. On the 18th, about a week later, I called John. John said that he'd follow up. I have not received it. I think that it is important, if that is available, that the board members and myself have it. would you put up the third slide, please? Most importantly, if that information is not available with the date and timestamp, there is a possible, and I emphasize possible violation. I've asked this question 4 or 5 times publicly, several times privately. On the state's attorney's own RFP, the response deadline was July 24th at noon. On July 27th, Mr. Hoshite asked the question with respect to outside consultant, is that something that other Collier counties have done? Mr. McMahon replied, every Collier County has retained an outside consultant, and I received 2 proposals over the weekend, and then the second was over the weekend, so after the deadline, and one this morning on 7/27 that Mr. Berger and I will review. I have seen the RFP. I have seen the Bronner response that was delivered on July 24th before noon at 11:53 a.m. The only request, and I certainly don't want to stand in the way of what this board intends to do, but it is important that the state's attorney and the board as a whole proves out that KEB was submitted on time, or there is a possible violation of the procurement law. Could you put up the next slide, Roger?
Yes.
Again, an illustration of how important information on time is. The date and time stamp of when the CAC committee, State's Attorney's Office, distributed to the board members Resolution 2275, selection of consultant. That was not received by the county clerk's office. I checked with Celeste shortly after that was passed. We did get a copy of it, but not the date and the time that it was sent to inform board members. That was not received before the vote by the county board office, in this case, Gabby Figliozzi, or any of us in the county board office, and then not received before the vote by several board members who were polled. It did pass, and so I understand that is the will of this board. However, the idea of when people are being informed is important. And then would you put up just the final one, Roger? Final slide is then the answer to the question on what date and at what time did the board members receive the small business nonprofit grant distribution scoring and eligibility final criteria. People have to ask themselves, what's your level of confidence that this can be executed properly when it was received 3 hours and 45 minutes before the meeting itself? We had one person vote no, as I recall, another person vote present because there wasn't enough time for at least the person voting present to consider it. So there cannot be a new standard in public work on final action that is not the standard 48 hours or 2 days, but then that's been collapsed for final action. Usually in every piece of legislation, whether it's a general assembly or a county board, there are typically 3 hearings, 3 different boards. Here, it's now down to 3 hours and 45 minutes, even with an amendment during the meeting. So my encouragement to the board is to insist on all laws being followed, and that enough time is given for proper consideration to any matters that you're going to take any vote on, much less a final action. So that would just be my attempt to try to help, because eventually all of this will need to stand up to audit, and these kinds of procedural problems could make our job when some of us are going to be gone. I'll be gone, Mr. Hoshite will be gone, Mr. Hanson will be gone, Mr. McMahon will be gone, Ms. Thomas will be gone, but there are many of you who will still be serving, And if we fail any part of that audit, checks will have to be written on the bank account of Kane County taxpayers back to the federal government. And I know none of us want that. So I truly am sympathetic. I just wanted to put in that thought before we come to the end of today's meeting. So I would ask once again publicly if the information can be supplied by the people who have that information, or if we don't have the information, let's somehow figure out how we resolve that, that action has been taken without that information. So that's all I had. Any other further business? Hearing none, seeing none, no need for executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Froz moves and Mr. Kenyon seconds.
Mr. Froz moves, Mr. Kenyon seconds. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ellen,
Allen, aye.
Barrero,
Guerrero, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Raz.
Yes.
Hanson. Hernandez,
Yes.
Boscheit,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Tyus,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis, Martin, Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Martin, yes.
okay, Shefflo,
Yes.
lost my track here. Shefflo, yes. Silva,
Silva, yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Winnicky. Passes.
Okay, so the motion passes. We're adjourned. If it's all right with everybody, should